There are people out there, not just lost, not just hurt, but people who feed on control, on attention, on dominance. We call them narcissists. And if you've ever had one in your life, you know they don't come with a warning label. They come with a smile. They charm you, mirror you, make you feel seen, special. You want to know the real reason a narcissist keeps coming back into your life? It's not because they love you. It's not because they care. It's because they know the door is still open. They know they can step back in, twist a few words, push a few buttons, and get the reaction they want. And that's because the boundaries, they were never built strong enough to keep them out. Now, I want you to hear me. Boundaries are not about being rude. They're not about being cold. They're about being clear. And clarity, real clarity, is terrifying to someone who manipulates for a living. A narcissist feeds on blurred lines. They thrive in the gray area where your no sounds like maybe, where your undone sounds like convince me. That's their playground. That's where they do their damage. So let me ask you, what does your no sound like? Is it firm? Is it steady? Or does it shake the moment someone raises their voice, makes a threat, or plays the victim? You see, most people never learned how to build boundaries. Some of us were raised to believe that love means sacrifice, even when it costs our peace. Some of us were trained to be people pleasers, taught that being nice is more important than being honest. But let me tell you something. Being nice to someone who is using you, gaslighting you, or disrespecting you, that's not kindness. That's self-abandonment. Now, here's the hard truth. Narcissists don't respect you more when you give them everything. They respect you when you don't. When you say, no, that's not okay. When you stop explaining yourself. When you stop over-justifying your decisions. That's when they realize you're not a toy. You're a person. A whole person, and they can't play the same game anymore. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They're gates to protect what matters inside. Your peace, your time, your values. When you have boundaries, you are telling the world, this is who I am, this is what I allow, and this is what I will not tolerate. And when you live like that, the right people will step closer, the wrong ones will disappear. And let me be very clear. When a narcissist realizes you have boundaries, they will test them. Oh, yes, they will. They'll push harder. They'll try every trick they've used before. Love bombing, guilt, rage, silence, anything to get a crack in the foundation. But if you hold steady, if you stay grounded, they lose their grip. You're no longer feeding the cycle. You're no longer playing the role they assigned you. And I know this is not easy. You're going to feel fear. You're going to feel guilt, especially if that narcissist is someone close to you, a parent, a partner, a friend. But boundaries aren't just something you set once. They're something you honor every day. It's a commitment to yourself, a promise that you will not trade your peace for their approval. Not anymore. You don't need to yell. You don't need to insult. All you need is to be firm, calm, grounded. A simple no, I'm not okay with that, can stop manipulation in its tracks. A confident, that doesn't work for me, is more powerful than hours of arguing. And the moment you realize that, your time, your mind, your heart, they are sacred. That's the moment everything changes. So what does this look like in real life? It looks like not responding to the late night guilt texts. It looks like walking away when the conversation turns abusive. It looks like saying, I'm not going to argue, and actually leaving the room. It looks like blocking a number, ending a toxic friendship, or choosing to protect your energy instead of explaining your worth one more time. You don't owe anyone access to you just because they demand it. And hear this loud and clear. Love without boundaries is not love. It's codependency. Respect without boundaries is not respect. It's fear. Real power, even when you will and will not allow it, and standing on that truth, even when it shakes. So the next time you feel like someone is messing with your mind, the next time you feel manipulated, gaslit, used, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what boundary do I need to reinforce right now? Then act on it, speak it, live it, because when you master the art of boundaries, the narcissist doesn't stand a chance. They'll walk away not because they chose to, but because they can't stay where manipulation no longer works. And that's how you win. There's a moment in every relationship, every toxic interaction, where something doesn't feel right. The words sound sweet, but the energy is cold. The apology comes, but somehow you feel blamed. They say they love you, but you feel small, confused, and invisible. That moment, that's the moment the game is being played. And if you don't call it out, it will continue. A narcissist plays a very specific game, a psychological chess match, where their only goal is they lie without blinking, they deny things they said 5 minutes ago, they flip the script so often that you start to doubt your memory, your instincts, even your sanity. That's not an accident. That's the strategy. Confuse you enough, and you'll stop trusting yourself. Keep you chasing validation and you'll stay under their thumb. Now listen to me. Silence is permission in their world. If you don't call it out, they assume you don't see it. And if you do see it, but still tolerate it, they assume you'll keep tolerating it. That's how they win, by staying in control of the narrative. But here's the truth. The moment you name the manipulation, the illusion shatters, the mask slips, the spell breaks. You don't have to scream. You don't have to insult them. You don't need to get emotional. What you need is courage, calm courage, the kind that comes from knowing what you're looking at and refusing to play dumb just to keep the peace. You can say something as simple as, I noticed how you twisted what I said just now. Or, you're blaming me for your behavior and I won't accept that. Or the most powerful one of all, that sounds like manipulation and I see it clearly. Now understand this. Narcissists hate to be exposed. They can't stand being seen for who they really are. They need the mask. They survive on the illusion of control. So when you call it out, you're not just speaking truth, you're hitting the very center of their false identity. And that's when they react. Oh, they'll react. Expect denial, expect rage, expect a full-blown performance. They'll act hurt, they'll cry, they'll yell. They might even go silent, hoping you'll feel bad and come running. But that reaction, that's not proof you were wrong. That's proof you were right. You saw the game and you said something. That's power, you see. Calling it out isn't just about confronting them. It's about reclaiming your mind. It's about no longer gaslighting yourself. Because the truth is, most people in toxic relationships already know what's happening. They feel it in their gut. They sense the distortion, but they second guess it because the narcissist has trained them to. That's what gaslighting does. It makes you doubt what you see, what you hear, even what you know in your bones. But when you speak the truth out loud, you take back control of your reality. You anchor yourself in sanity and you send a message. I am no longer available for manipulation. Let me make something clear. It takes strength to see the game. It takes real strength to speak it. But you don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You don't need the perfect words. All you need is clarity. You know what you're experiencing. You know when you're being played. So trust that, stand on that, and say what needs to be said. Some people will walk away when you speak up. Let them. Some will get angry. Let them. Your job is not to manage their reactions. Your job is to speak your truth and protect your peace. Because if you don't call out the manipulation becomes you'll spend your days trying to make sense of things that were never meant to make sense, and you'll stay stuck in a cycle designed to keep you confused and compliant. But when you speak it, when you call it what it is, you rise above the game. You see the board, not just the piece in front of you. You stop reacting and start responding. That's how you shift the dynamic. That's how you win. Not by playing better, but by refusing to play at all. A narcissist cannot survive where truth lives. Their power ends where your clarity begins. So the next time you hear that twisted logic, the next time you're blamed for things you didn't do, shamed for feelings you didn't create, or guilt-tripped for setting boundaries, don't shrink, don't second guess, don't let their story become yours. Call it out. Calm, direct, unshakable. Say it once, say it without fear, and walk away from the table where respect is no longer being served. Because once you see the game, you don't have to play it. And once you stop playing, the narcissist stops winning. Let me tell you something most people don't realize until it's too late. The moment you begin to truly respect yourself, the game changes. Because a narcissist can't manipulate someone who knows their value. See, narcissists are experts at finding the cracks in your foundation. They study you not because they love you, but because they want to learn how to control you. They observe your insecurities, your desires, your doubts. They look for the places where your self-respect isn't fully formed, and they go to work. They praise you just enough to get you hooked. Then they criticize you just enough to keep you chasing their approval. That cycle, that's how they keep you locked in. But self-respect is what breaks that cycle. Self-respect is not arrogance. It's not pride. It's the quiet, unshakable belief that you are worthy of peace, worthy of truth, worthy of love, that doesn't come with strings attached. When you walk in that belief, you become immovable. You don't fall for the love bombing. You don't shrink under the gaslighting. You don't chase validation because you don't need anyone to tell you who you are. You already know. And when you carry that kind of self-respect, narcissists don't stick around for long. Why? Because you're no fun to them anymore. You don't react the way they want you to. You don't crumble when they criticize. You don't dance when they push your buttons. You hold your line. You keep your peace. And that drives them crazy because control only works on people who are still seeking approval. Think about it. How many times have you allowed disrespect because you were afraid of being alone? How many times have you stayed silent to avoid conflict? How many times have you let someone manipulate you because you didn't want to lose them, even though you were losing yourself in the process? That's what a lack of self-respect looks like. And it's not your fault. A lot of us were raised to put others first, to keep the peace, to be nice, even when we're being disrespected. But you got to understand, self-respect isn't selfish, it's survival. It's you saying, I will not shrink to fit into spaces that require me to portray myself. And let me be real with you, it takes time to build that kind of inner strength, especially if you've been manipulated, torn down, or emotionally abused. But every time you speak up, every time you say no without guilt, every time you choose your peace over someone else's chaos, you're reinforcing your foundation. You're telling the world and yourself, I matter. That energy, that's unbreakable. That's the kind of presence that walks into a room and doesn't have to say a word to command respect. And when a narcissist meets someone like that, they don't see a target. They see a wall they can't climb. They see a mirror they don't want to face, because you can't manipulate someone who refuses to abandon themselves. Self-respect also means you don't negotiate with dysfunction. You don't explain your boundaries 20 times. You don't argue with someone who's twisting your words just to win. You protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. And if someone doesn't like that, let them go. Let them talk. Let them paint you as the villain if they must. That's fine. You're not in the business of managing other people's delusions. You're in the business of protecting your peace. The real win in life isn't getting the narcissist to change. It's not proving your worth to someone who was never going to value you in the first place. The real win is realizing you don't need to perform to be loved. You don't need to bend to be accepted. You don't need to chase anyone to be seen. You just need to be. And let your self-respect do the talking. Let it speak when someone crosses the line. Let it speak when someone gaslights you and expects you to stay quiet. Let it speak when someone comes back with sweet words and hollow promises. Because this time you see through it and you know who you are. That's the shield. That's the armor. Not anger, not revenge, just self-respect, pure and solid. That's what keeps you protected. That's what keeps your mind clear. That's what makes the narcissist walk away confused and frustrated, wondering why their tricks aren't working anymore. So build it, strengthen it, guard it, because the world will try to tear it down. But once you have it, really have it, no narcissist, no manipulator will ever be able to break you again. Because when you know your worth, you don't entertain anything that contradicts it. And that right there is your freedom. We've all heard the saying, silence is golden. And yes, sometimes it is. Sometimes silence is power, peace, even wisdom. But let's be honest, there are times when silence is not golden. It's heavy, it's suffocating. It becomes a prison that traps your truth inside while someone else rewrites your reality. And when you're dealing with a narcissist, silence isn't a shield, it's a doorway for more manipulation. See, narcissists thrive in silence. They count on it. They depend on your fear of conflict, your hesitation, your discomfort with confrontation. That quiet pause where you should have spoken up but didn't, that's where they plant their control. They speak over you, they twist your words, they dominate the conversation, and they interpret your silence not as maturity, not as grace, but as weakness, as permission. Because here's the truth they don't want you to know. Narcissists don't respect silence unless it's a silence they can't break. And that kind of silence only comes after you've already spoken your truth, clearly, directly, and without apology. Silence before the truth is fear. Silence after the truth is power. You've got to learn how to use your voice, not to argue, not to attack, but to bring clarity into the room. See, narcissists are masters of distortion. They create confusion, then feed off your doubt. But when you speak with calm, assertive truth, it's like turning on a light in a room they wanted to keep dark. You don't need to yell, you don't need to beg, you just need to say what needs to be said and mean it. For example, when they try to shift blame onto you, say, I'm not responsible for your behavior. When they gaslight you and make you question your own memory, say, I trust what I saw and I trust what I felt. When they twist your words and make you defend things you never said, say, I'm not going to explain myself over something you created. These are not arguments, these are declarations, anchors, boundaries spoken out loud. And once they're spoken, you let them land, and then you let silence follow. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of a closed door. The silence of a firm line that no longer needs negotiation. See, too often people confuse keeping the peace with avoiding the truth. But you can't have real peace without truth. You can't have healing without honesty. And if you're always the one swallowing your words, biting your tongue, keeping things calm while chaos is being thrown at you, eventually you stop hearing your own voice. That's what narcissists want. They want you off balance. They want you doubting yourself, because when your voice disappears, so does your identity, so does your power, so does your freedom. But when you find the courage to speak, Something changes inside of you. You remember who you are. You stop shrinking. You stop absorbing all the blame and guilt that was never yours to carry. You start taking up space again. And that space, that's sacred. That's where healing begins. Now I'm not saying go out and fight with everyone. I'm not saying every moment requires confrontation. But the moments that do, you'll feel them. You'll feel that tightness in your chest, that hesitation in your throat, that moment where something feels wrong, but you tell yourself to let it go just to avoid the tension. That's the moment that matters most. Because when you say nothing, you teach people how to continue disrespecting you. But when you speak clear, firm, unapologetic, you send a message, I am no longer available for manipulation. Some people will walk away when you stop staying silent. Let them. Some people will get angry when you start speaking your truth. Let them. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Your only responsibility is to honor the truth inside of you, the truth you buried for too long to keep people comfortable. You're not here to be walked on. You're not here to be controlled. You're not here to be anyone's emotional punching bag. You're here to live fully, freely, and truthfully. And that means your voice has to lead the way. So yes, silence has a time and a place, but when it becomes the thing keeping you stuck, silenced, small, it's no longer golden, it's poison. Don't be afraid to speak up. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. Not to wound, but to wake up. Not to fight, but to finally free yourself. Because once the truth is spoken, everything that needs to fall away will. And everything that's meant to rise in you finally can. There's a shift that happens in your life when you finally realize who you are. Not who they told you to be, not who you pretended to be to survive, not who you thought you had to be to get love or keep the peace, but the real you, the grounded you, the you that's not performing, not apologizing for existing, not twisting yourself into shapes to make others comfortable. When you know that version of yourself, when you stand in it, you become untouchable. Because the thing about narcissists is this, they depend on you not knowing your own power. They rely on your identity being shaky. Because when you don't know who you are, you become easy to shape, easy to control. They can tell you who you are and you'll believe them. They can project their flaws onto you and you'll carry them. They can chip away at your self-worth and you'll think you deserve it. But when you do know who you are, truly, deeply, unshakably, you stop being available for that kind of treatment. You stop internalizing their lies. You stop dancing for their approval. You start walking in your truth, and suddenly their games lose power. Let me say this, self-awareness is the kryptonite of manipulation. When you know what you bring to the table, your values, your standards, your gifts, your limits, no one can convince you that you're worthless. No one can gaslight you into believing you're the problem for setting boundaries. And no one can twist your identity to fit their narrative, because your sense of self is no longer up for negotiation. Knowing who you are means you no longer chase validation. You already have your own. You no longer second guess yourself every time someone disagrees or disapproves. You hear their opinion, but you measure it against your own truth. And if it doesn't match, you let it go because you've stopped outsourcing your worth. That's why narcissists back away from people with self-possession. They don't know what to do with someone they can't confuse. Someone who sees the manipulation as it's happening. Someone who doesn't rise to every insult or melt under every silent treatment. They'll call you cold. They'll say you're too much. They'll say you've changed, and they're right. You have changed. You've stepped into your identity, and they can't reach you there. See, the game a narcissist plays is psychological. It's not about love. It's not even about connection. It's about control. And that control only works when you don't trust yourself. So when you do, when you're rooted, when you know your yes and your no, when you stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, that's when you become a different kind of person. That's when your energy says, I don't argue with nonsense. I don't chase confusion. I don't beg to be seen. You're not playing on their field anymore. You're building your own. And look, this kind of knowing doesn't happen overnight. It comes from being broken a few times, from believing lies and finally waking up from them, from walking through pain and coming out the other side with clarity. But once you know who you are, you don't go back. You can't unsee the truth of your own worth. People will still try you. Some will test your boundaries. Some will label your strength as arrogance. Let them. Their discomfort with your confidence is not your burden to carry. Your job is not to shrink so others can feel tall. Your job is to hold your head high and walk in alignment with your truth. Because when you know who you are, you start making different choices. You stop settling for crumbs. You stop explaining your intuition. You stop betraying yourself for temporary peace. You begin honoring yourself in how you speak, how you live, and how you love. And that's when something beautiful happens. Your life begins to reflect your self-worth. The people around you start to change, not because you're forcing them, but because your energy no longer matches the old chaos. You attract honesty. You attract mutual respect. You attract people who don't need to control you to feel secure. And you start creating a life where your peace is protected, not stolen. So let me leave you with this. When you know who you are, you become immune to manipulation. You stop being a puppet in someone else's story. You become the author of your own. You start moving with purpose, with clarity, with dignity. And the people who once had power over you, they fade into the background, not because they disappeared, but because they no longer have access to your mind, your heart, or your identity. You're not theirs to play with anymore. You're yours. And that is freedom. So here it is, bottom line. If you want to stop a narcissist from ever messing with you again, you don't fight them with fire. You don't match their manipulation with more games. You don't beg, chase, or try to prove your worth to someone who made you question it in the first place. You speak with truth. You move with strength. You say the words that send a message louder than any argument ever could. I know who I am. I know what I deserve, and I will not make space for anything or anyone that disrespects that truth. Because the most powerful thing you can ever say to a narcissist is nothing that seeks to win them over. It's something that reminds you that you've already won. You've won when you set boundaries and enforce them without apology. You've won when your silence comes after clarity, not fear. You've won when your self-respect becomes your armor. You've won when your voice carries the weight of your identity. And you've won completely when you no longer allow confusion, guilt, or shame to govern your decisions. The truth is, narcissists don't fear confrontation. They fear clarity. They fear your peace. They fear your stillness. They fear the version of you who no longer needs them. So say what needs to be said, stand how you need to stand, and then let them face the truth they cannot control. Because when you know your worth, when you really know it, you don't just stop narcissists. You stop everyone who ever thought they could take your power and walk away with it. And from that moment on, you don't just survive, you lead, you rise, you live free. That's your power. Now walk in it.